I've completely reworked my game because it was kind of boring. For those who don't know, my friend and I are trying to make our first commercial game, building on a small game jam idea we had back in October. The basic premise of the game is that you're a tribal leader tasked with keeping your tribe safe and thriving, while also appeasing the volcano god they worship. To do this, you venture into a volcanic dungeon, defeat enemies, and collect magma stones. You can either then spend those magma stones on upgrading yourself, or sacrificing them to the volcano god to fill your magma bar. The magma bar acts as both your health and your ammunition when you're in the dungeon. Originally, the entire game took place in a single room. You'd fight progressively harder waves of enemies, and every 5 waves, where you'd get the choice to leave or continue to go deeper. It worked fine for the game jam, as we had a limited time to finish, and making a complex dungeon system with procedurally generated rooms and corridors would be way too hard and time consuming. Plus, we were very new to game development, and people say don't do procedural dungeon generation. It's extremely complex and really hard to get right. So quick rundown, I've now built a procedural dungeon generator system. It's similar to Enter the Gungeon's dungeon generator. So we have a start room that will have a random tile removed, and a door and a corridor attached. And then another door and a random room will be attached on the end of that corridor, and so on. Until after a set amount of rooms have been placed, a final boss room will be created, which will hold the boss, obviously, and that will be the end of that level. There is also a random chance for each room to spawn another door-corridor combo and create a branch off the main trunk of rooms and corridors. This all sounds great and simple, but let me tell you, I have spent days of my life staring at hundreds of lines of code and coming up with incredibly stupid ways to spawn door scenes on top of room scenes and have everything line up perfectly. Like I had this stupid marker and blocker system where some tiles in the room had no collision shapes, so I had to make these static 2D markers that would block the player, but they had to be lined up perfectly every time for every room, and even then it wouldn't always work. I also had issues with rooms spawning on top of rooms, corridors. It was a nightmare, but now I have a system that will check where every room is placed, and if there overlaps, the dungeon is scrapped and a new one is made. If you want more details on how this all works, let me know. With a new dungeon also comes a new dungeon tile set. With this, I had a little help. I found this tile map with a volcanic theme, which was perfect, and I bought it and I edited some of the assets to work with our game. These are still temporary for now, but I'm liking how it's looking a lot more than what it originally looked like. Along with this new environment visuals, I've improved the player sprite characters, and similar to Enter the Gungeon, the player sprite turns to follow the mouse position. This does, however, mean I have to draw 6 animations for each direction they face, which is why there's only the idle animation for now, but I will get to it. Along with the new player, I've updated the fireball you shoot, so that it explodes on hit to give a little bit more juice. Again, this one is temporary, it doesn't look exactly how I want it to just yet. Now onto enemy improvements. Before, I had a basic, average-sized health bar and enemies that would do nothing when they got hit. This obviously doesn't feel good, so instead I've added a new health bar system with some damage delay and a knockback and a flash on the enemy when they're hit, which I think just gives the attacks a little bit more oomph. Along with this new enemy work, I've added a new enemy, and I'm calling him the Lava Shaman for now. And what he does is he'll spawn 3 fire columns under the player after a small delay before teleporting to another area in the room and repeats. I'm hoping this guy becomes a sort of high damage dealer with high mobility, but incredibly squishy, so if you can lock him down and focus him, he's just straight out of the game. I've also started work on a new relic system. Similar to games like Slay the Spire, the idea is that you'll find these in the dungeon, and they can give you certain buffs, like increased damage, or more interestingly, add new mechanics, such as changing how your attacks work, or other abilities work, once I get around to adding more abilities, that is. For now, we just have this Ashen Ring, which will simply double the player's damage, and so you know what it does, I've added a drop down. You look at that drop down. This took me half a day to get this right, and you will appreciate it. Honestly, I hate making UI. It is so frustrating when you spend an insane amount of time debugging only to realize that the mouse filter was set to stop on one random node. So yeah, the game's gone from one repetitive room to something that actually feels like a proper dungeon crawler. There's still a lot to do, especially bosses, but it's finally starting to come together. Next up is finishing the dungeon generator and actually adding that boss. If you've got any ideas for relics, enemies, or bosses, let me know, and I'll see you in the next one.